So in this video, I want to talk about taking a drum loop and slicing it up in Groove Agent, and then using those slices, setting them to their individual pads, and then you have the ability to make something a little bit more interesting with, let's say, a remix or something like that, or just your own original production. So stay tuned. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate using this session that I started here. This is actually a Metapop Produce This contest in conjunction with Native Instruments. And what they've done is they've provided a bunch of different samples and loops for you to produce like a 16-bar drum interesting section, whatever. And I'll show you the kit that I've put together. So this is the drum samples, not including all the loops that they provided. So there's that. Then there's a bunch of different loops that they provided here. And the thing that I wanted to demonstrate is by actually I'll open up a new instance of Groove Agent, and you can do this in either the full version or the SE version, which is the free version that comes with Cubase. I have here a drum loop that I can drag into Groove Agent, and then if I go into this slice section and create slices, it now you have these different options here, but right now it's on transient mode, so it's looking at the audio source and it's finding a transient based on the threshold. So I can adjust the threshold, and it's going to create a slice at that point that it's decided. I can also add a minimum slice length. So here you can see it looks a little bit more like a grid. I can also actually go to a grid size, let's say 1/8, slice it up like this, or I can blend the two. I can add the grid catch section here to, let's say, if I had less of a threshold, maybe. Yeah, here we go. So here it's prioritizing either the grid point here, or if I tweak it down, it's prioritizing the transient. So it has a little bit of a blend of both. And then when I actually play the individual hits here, so let's go back to, let's say, a 1/8 grid. If I play it in sequence, it's going to play as though I didn't even slice the drum loop. So let's say I go into here and I will find C1 and, oops, that's -1. So C1, and I'll create right here. So if I create a MIDI staircase and play it in sequence, it's going to play it as though I didn't even chop up the loop. So it's playing it back almost exactly like the loop there. And then what I can do is go in and just tweak some hits, play some random notes, and do some, let's say, a double take like this, and then see what happens. So that's not anything particularly great, but you get the point. It kind of randomizes the drum hits and creates something a little bit more fresh and interesting. The other thing is, now that you have it in the pads, you can jam out something. So that's more like a ride hit, snare. So that's a little bit more interesting. If you draw in something, or sorry, you can record that in. So like in this instance, I have basically a full drum loop, but then it added an extra hit here, and the sample is this one right here, this extra drum hit, kick drum. And it just adds a little bit more texture. So if I crank this up so you can hear. So without it, pretty basic, and with it, just adds a little bit more texture and interest to that drum loop. Yeah, and then the other thing too is you can go with something melodic. So if we get rid of this, so if you chop this up by, let's say, the grid, and we'll go with 1/8 grid again, and then activate this, maybe add the fade outs, fade ins, so you have a little bit more of like a stutter effect going on, and when you jam that out with the drum kits, you get the point there. And again, it's just adding a little bit more interest to whatever kind of loops that you have, whatever you're working with. You can jam it out and create ideas sort of on the fly. The other option is you can do something similar by just distorting the audio on the timeline itself. So let's say we rearrange this to add gaps and change the position, and maybe do that. We can duplicate this hit, and we can go to audio, process, and reverse this, and we'll create new. You can also do reverses and whatnot in here. So if you click on the sample that it's spliced, you can go into sample, and then here you can click reverse. So now it's reversed it, and then you can create some fades, and the duplication process would just be adding another MIDI note there. But that's, yeah, either way works good. I think I like both. This with the MIDI, it allows you to jam it out. Then you can record an instance, and it takes your raw recording, raw performance. Excuse me. This method here is actually a lot of fun because you can quickly chop things up, mangle it without even hearing it, just doing random things, play back a section, and decide if it's cool or not. So actually, I like this idea. I would probably maybe, let's see. Yeah, that whole section is actually pretty cool. So I would probably keep this, maybe delete that. That idea didn't seem that great. And then maybe I'll leave it blank and do like this. Leave a blank there. Reverse this one and move it. See what that does. Move this over. No, I'm going to chop that and create a section like that. See how that sounds. So that part's not so great. Let's get rid of that idea like so. That sounds like it's off time now. But anywho's, you get the point. So in the same way that you can chop things up and splice it and reverse and do fades and all that interesting stuff in the timeline with raw audio, you can also do that in Groove Agent, and it splices it for you. You have this kind of interesting way of creating the slices. So you can do by the grid, you can do both. It's like has like this kind of streamlined way of doing it, and then it assigns it to the pads, and then you can jam on it. That's actually pretty cool. So I hope you liked this, and hopefully you got something out of it. You can use this in your production, whatever you're going to be doing. And yeah, thanks for watching, and take care. Bye-bye.